morning, everybody. We're here today in front of the post office in downtown Denver because the President of the United States is trying to undermine the U.S. election by helping his chances in the upcoming November election. Frankly, this is an unprecedented attack on our democracy and our voting system, and it's why the U.S. House of Representatives is going to reconvene in Washington later this week to pass legislation. While the President appears to be hyper-focused on the upcoming election, the damage that he's doing to our Postal Service will expand far further than the political sphere that he's targeting. Shutting down the U.S. Postal Service or delaying the delivery of mail, it doesn't just hurt with the ballots, it causes irreparable harm to millions of Americans, including our seniors, our veterans, and people who live in rural areas of our state. Just in the last couple of weeks, I have heard by either email, letter, or phone call from over 12,000 of my constituents. To put that in context, that's more than 3 times as many contacts that we've ever had from constituents on any single issue, including impeachment. Most of the people I've heard from are not only worried about their mail being delayed, most of them are saying they're already feeling the effects of the mail delays. I've heard from hardworking families who are struggling to pay their bills because their paychecks haven't arrived in the mail. I've heard from small business owners who say they're struggling to stay afloat because the goods and products that they ordered are just simply not arriving in time. And I've heard from seniors and from veterans, one of whom you're going to hear from today, who are not getting their life-saving medication because it's delayed by the mail. 80% of veterans receive their medications by mail. Delaying their prescriptions could cause serious damage to their health and well-being. And on top of that, over 900,000 active duty military members across the country are eligible for vote by mail because they are deployed or stationed elsewhere. These brave men and women selflessly put their lives on the line to defend our country, and they have a right to say who leads our country. One woman who wrote to my office recently said she's no longer receiving her mail daily, and the checks that she's putting in the mail to pay her bills are not being received by the companies in time. I feel like this is a living nightmare, she wrote. What country am I living in? Our democracy is crumbling right before our eyes, and there's no one to stop it. A small business owner here in Denver wrote to me and said, delays in receiving and delivering mail is hurting small businesses like ours by not allowing products to be delivered in a timely fashion. Bills and payments are being delayed. Our economy is in a shambles, and we're struggling to stay alive. This has to stop. The President's actions to undermine our Postal Service are not only a threat to our democracy, they're a direct threat to the lives and livelihoods of the people who need them. Yesterday, as the chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee's Oversight and Investigations Panel, I announced that we're launching an investigation to determine the impact the administration's changes have had on the delivery of people's prescription drugs. At a time when the nation's public health is already under significant threat from the spread of the coronavirus, any effort by the administration to delay the delivery of life-saving prescription drugs to patients is just simply inexcusable. And while the White House has gladly handed out billions of dollars to Wall Street to help them respond to this pandemic, they haven't provided 1 cent to the Postal Service to help solve this crisis. The House voted in May, to provide the Post Office the money it needs to continue operating as it has, but Mitch McConnell and the U.S. Senate have refused to take up that bill. So as I said, on Saturday, the House is going to vote on legislation to provide the U.S. Postal Service with an additional $25 billion to continue its operations uninterrupted through the end of the year. Also, and critically, the legislation will also prevent the administration from making any changes to the Postal Service before the election. Specifically, the legislation will prevent any changes to the Postal Service's delivery standards that were in place on January 1, 2020, any changes that would cause the Postal Service not to meet those delivery standards, and any changes that would delay or cause mail not to be delivered. It also prevents the administration from closing or consolidating any post offices or reducing hours at any postal facility. And it ends the administration's prohibition on overtime pay for postal employees, which the letter carriers I spoke to is causing a real backup in the mail at facilities in this area. I want to turn this over. We're going to have some folks who are directly impacted by this. But before we do, I want to turn this over to my friend and colleague Jason Crow, who can talk about the impacts of these terrible policies in his own area. Jason?
Thank you, Diana. So good to be here to join my friend and colleague Diana DeGette on this really important issue. I've spent the morning visiting post offices in the 6th Congressional District just to hear from customers, to hear from postal workers on this issue, because what is really clear is that oftentimes what happens is there are these policy debates that rage in Washington, and we talk about large numbers, we talk about the data and the statistics behind what's happening. It's so easy to lose touch with the impact on real people's lives, both the employees of the post office in this instance, as well as the people of the country that they serve. So just talking about those stories and hearing from them really drives home what's at stake. You know, like my friend Diana, my office has been inundated with calls and with correspondence from people that rely on the Postal Service to get their life-saving medications, including people who are not getting it in a timely fashion in the last couple of weeks because of the delays, who rely on the post office for their benefits, of veterans that rely on the post office to deliver critical information about their veterans' benefits and their tuition reimbursement for their monthly and their semester tuition payments. And of course, in Colorado, we know well the importance of the post office for the right to vote. We are a mail-in voting state predominantly. We are a state that does it really well. For the last 7 years, we have done mail-in voting. Republicans, Democrats, and independents alike have gotten behind our system, and it works. It works remarkably well. But we need a healthy, solvent post office to deliver those ballots and to retrieve those ballots. You know, as a veteran, I've served with men and women who fought and in some cases bled for the rights that we hold so dear in our country, including the right to vote. And it should not be that hard to make sure that we are enfranchising people and providing that right for everyone across the country. It is the least that we owe to those men and women who have given so much to make sure that we are solidifying that right. And solidifying that right means protecting the post office, not just in Colorado, but across the country. We can and we must get that done. You know, the founders of our country knew something really important when they enshrined the post office in the Constitution. They knew that a country as big and as diverse as ours, of urban and rural, of all different types of people from different backgrounds, that we require a system that will bring us together, that will make rural businesses work, that will protect our seniors, that will help our veterans. And that's why they created the post office, and that's why it's so important today. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the impact, the direct impact on our veterans through a healthy postal service, and that is as one of the largest employers of veterans in our nation. You know, almost 20% of Postal Service employees are veterans, men and women who served our country and they wanted to continue their service after they took off the uniform, so they joined the Postal Service. And over 80% of our veterans get their medications from the VA through the Postal Service. It is a veterans issue. And that's why this is so important, and that's why I'm glad to be standing in solidarity with Congresswoman DeGette and all of my colleagues in the House to vote on Saturday to protect the Postal Service and to make sure that we are standing up for the rights of our veterans and the rights of our seniors and the rights of people in our urban and rural communities and the underserved, to protect this important service and we'll continue to do so today and every day moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I just want to point out, Jason talks about preserving our right to vote. Today is the centennial of a woman's right to vote in this country. And I'm going to tell you, the women of this country are not going to celebrate the centennial of their ability to vote, only to let Donald Trump take it away from them because the post offices won't process their ballots. And now I'd like to introduce Vic Ament. Vic is a retired police officer, and he depends on the U.S. Postal Service to receive several medications, not just for himself, but also for his service dog, Andrew. Vic.
Good morning. Thank you, Congresswoman DeGette and Congressman Crow, for this opportunity to address you this morning. I'm Vic Ament. I live in the Cheeseman Park area. My career spanned years in law enforcement and later becoming an acknowledged expert in the shipping of hazardous and radioactive materials. I'll be 70 this November. I know, I don't look it. I'm on Medicare with supplemental policies. They want you to use mail order prescription services for large supply rather than the local pharmacies. I have an older service dog who's 12 named Andrew who has a heart problem. He receives medicine by mail monthly from CSU. He has a congenital heart valve. This medicine is crucial for his survival. If he doesn't have that medicine for a couple of days, I could lose him. I also receive 4 medicines from 2 different mail order pharmacies. Without these medicines, I would have serious blood pressure, prostate, and diabetes issues. Like many seniors, I depend on these medications and cannot be without them for even one day. These medicines have been routinely delivered by the mail person before I ran out. I'm very nervous that this will not be happening in the future. As has been mentioned, the Postal Service is mandated by the Constitution, and many people are not aware that the United States Post Office has the most secure and reliable service in the world. Countries like Brazil have not had mail service for over 30 years. We cannot allow the post offices to be weakened to the point where mail cannot be delivered quickly and efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vic. And now I'm pleased to introduce Eddie Soto. Eddie's a small business owner here in the 1st Congressional District. Eddie.
My name is Eddie Soto, and I'm a business owner of a business called Colorado Masquerade. Me and my employees make reusable masks made out of 100% cotton with a built-in polyfin filter, and we are proud to make the Valvera neighborhood right here in Denver our home office. If it was not for the U.S. Postal Service and their amazing employees, we could not survive. Let me explain to you why we need this Postal Service to be able to compete against the large corporations that having all their products made in China and shipped directly from China. The one advantage we have is that our customers will get their mask within 2 to 3 days once we receive the order, and at a very, very reasonable rate. I'm going to use myself as an example. Let's say I'm at my home today, at this hour, looking for a mask to safely go to the grocery store this weekend. I log onto our website and I order a mask for this weekend. I live 2 zip codes away from the office in the 80212 zip code. Our shipping clerk receives the order, puts the mask in the envelopes, and makes a label for $2 in the U.S. Postal Service, and I will get the mask either Thursday or Friday. That way I can go out safely to the neighborhood, I can go to the grocery store safely wearing a mask, making sure I don't help spread COVID. If I had to use FedEx Ground, I would have to pay $5.49 plus a $225 residential charge. So that's $8. UPS is even worse. They're at $10.72 to get it to my house. In these days, most people are ordering through the internet to prevent the spread of COVID. 90% of our sales come through our website. Some of our products only cost $10. This means that I would have to charge my customers more than the product costs just to get it to them. And this is just here in the Denver Metroplex areas. I'm only 5 miles away from my office. And what will happen when we have to ship to Montrose, to Yuma, to the other areas in Colorado that have a harder time getting to masks? In these days where people are scared of spending their hard-earned money, I cannot afford, as many other small business owners that make the backbone of Colorado, to either absorb a 300 to 500% increase in my shipping costs or to pass it to my customer. At that price range, my customer would probably just order it from China and wait the 2 weeks that they're going to take to get their product. Most importantly, with the changes in the Denver post office, we can expect to see delays in first-class mail. That's how we get our invoices to our customers. That's how we get our checks. That's how we get our products the materials to make our products. A lot of us small business owners that depend on those checks that our customers send us might not be able to make payroll because we don't get the checks on time. This will affect the rest of the community, not the only people that are receiving the mail. It's time that Congress and this administration step up and fund the U.S. Postal Service to give small businesses a chance to survive and not to have to close and allow the large international corporations to survive and us to die.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eddie. Questions?
Congresswoman DeGette, there's a big disparity between Democrats and Republicans on confidence in mail balloting. You've probably seen the numbers. I think it's 70% of Democratic voters plan to vote by mail, something like 20% of Republicans. What do you say to Republicans who believe that mail balloting might be susceptible to fraud?
Colorado's been doing mail-in voting for several cycles now, and this plan was developed by Democrats and Republicans together. The system is secure, it's worked, and we have high voting rates among both parties and unaffiliated voters, and it works. So I would say to voters, they should not feel that they should not be misled by Donald Trump that voting by mail is insecure. We've been doing it in Colorado, and both parties agree that it is safe, secure, and it is not tampered with.
And I would add to that other states have been doing it for a long time too. The military has been doing it for generations. It works for our servicemen and women. It works in Colorado. There's no evidence of widespread fraud. It's just not true. It is safe, it is secure, and it's needed more than ever during a global pandemic because Americans should not have to choose between their health and their life and exercising their fundamental constitutional right to vote. And I will say that veterans, again, are uniquely vulnerable to this issue. Many veterans are over 65 and have pre-existing conditions, and those that raised their right hand and took the oath and stood up to fight for our freedoms should be able to exercise those freedoms without fear of compromising their health.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks everybody for coming out today. Appreciate it.